Hey guys, I hope you have had a chance to look at the video that I posted up there where we show the early start, late start, late start, late finish, and we set it on each individual activity. Maybe that makes a little more sense. But I'd like to look at number 15. So I'm trying to condense this down into one screen here. So um, number 15 says early start, early finish, late finish times, and it actually gives us the diagram. So we would have to go backwards a little bit to get those predecessors. So I think we'll just show you in Excel kind of what we can do and how we can calculate some of that. So the book is a little odd, and it's another variation of the theme. So the book says, can we do this in 30 weeks? And so what they have actually done then to demonstrate that it can't be done in 30 weeks is we actually set this right here. We set the late finish then to 30 weeks. And we said, well, all right, our latest finish we could possibly do is 30 weeks. If we do that and we work our way backwards, so 30 weeks here is our late finish. Activity J has a duration of 5 weeks. So that gives us a late start of 25 weeks. So if we work our way backwards, and we're really doing the same thing, so we have to know those dependencies a little bit here. So we can look at this activity here, and we know that it can either start here or start here. And so we work our way backwards. So week 25 here, notice that transfers up. And because I and H here both, so I and H, both of them have that same ending time. Notice we transfer the same finish time for both of them. So we have the finish times the same. So we can work our way backwards through that. And what this slack then is let me change the different color real quickly. So let's do a blue pen, see if that makes some difference here. So this slack is then late finish minus early finish, and it tells if there's any slack in that activity. And we know that just kind of going through before, when we went through a chart like this, we could see that when we start here, that this activity has 3 units, this activity is 5 units long, and that would tell us at this point in time here that there are 2 units of slack. So the difference being here is whether we put that slack at the end of it or we put it at the beginning of it. And if we're going this direction, so our backwards, our late start, late finish, we're going to put that slack here instead of at the beginning, if that makes sense. So we work our way through, and even in this, that will tell us we have some slack. When we say we have negative slack, that means not only are there no slack, so you'll see that the negatives here are all the items on our critical path, but that says that not only are we if we try to do the 30 weeks, not only do we have no slack, we actually have negative slack. In other words, we can't get it done, and at this point we are over our time budget. So that's a really clear way to do that. So let me move this out of the way, and I built a really quick spreadsheet to do something similar. And the one thing I did that maybe makes it a little easier to see is I took off that chart, I said I know what the critical activities are, and so in this case it's B, D, F, G, H, and J. So we can establish that is that critical path. It's the longest pathway through there. And we know that that's 32 weeks. We added up all these activities here. So if I add up 5 and 7 is 12, 17, whatever, 28, we end up with 32. So we know that it's 32. So this is the same chart we did where the book says here's a solution, and I just did it just to show you those slack times in there and what we have in there. So I think we're all smart enough to say, hey, we've got 30 weeks. Our earliest finish here, or our critical path, says we have 32 weeks. We can't do it. So I tend to want to put them in this way and just do it from the beginning this way. This is just a dramatic way to point out where those negatives are, that they're on that critical path and we can't complete them in that time. So here I've built the same chart, but this time I've done it with starting with 32. So the same answer I came down here, I've got here. So they're exactly the same piece here. So here I've got 32 and here I've got 32. So there I've used the same values for both of them. And so then I just worked my way backwards. And I know, for example, again, off of that chart, which wherever it is, that H and I, they start at the same time in this conclusion because we know they have the same dependencies. So let me go find it and show it to you. So if I look at our chart, which apparently I can't get in the front of that. Interesting. Hold on, let me get out of the drawing mode here. I don't want to highlight, I want to erase it all. Alright. Now let me see if I can get that in front of it. There we go. Okay, so our diagram here, so H and I both have the same dependencies. In other words, they're going to start at the same time here because J is dependent on them. So J, we know that they're going to have the same point in time right here. So that is this point in time here at 27 weeks. So 27 minus our expected duration of 9 gives us 16 weeks for a late start. And for this activity, because it's only 2 units long, but we start at the same time, it gives us 25 as a late start. And so I've just worked my way backwards up here. And so my late start is equal to my 0 time here. My late start for this activity then is at week 2. Well, that makes sense when I look at this activity right here. So notice it is only a duration of 3 units. So to get to this same spot, that time on a timeline of 5, I don't have to start it until time 2. So that still gives me that time. So that says I have some slack there. So the slack, I actually did put a formula in just to make life a little easier. And that slack I just calculated as, so calculated that as late finish minus early finish. So late finish minus early finish. And any time I had 0 slack or 0 float, in other words, that time crunch was real, then I know that that is on my critical path. So the problem in some cases says we need to do an additional change. So we need to recalculate. And so if this said, you know what, my expected duration for activity 1 is actually, let's come back in here, and it is only 4 units. So now I'd have to recalculate. Early finish would be 4. And so notice that would change, and that would change my slack. If I change that all to 5, well, I know that it is going to finish early at 5. And I also know that because it's a duration of 5, so 5 minus 5 is 0, so it would have no slack. This would change that critical path a little bit. So if we changed A to 5 units also, then that would make it part of that critical path. It would be, both of those activities would be on that critical path because they'd be the same time. However, let's envision this. Let's say that it actually took 6 weeks. So 6 weeks means that actually activity B would not be on the critical path. This activity would be, and we would have to figure out, then go through and recalculate our early starts, late starts, late finishes, late starts. So that's why it's really handy to have a tool to do it, but I think more importantly we need to make sure we understand how we're doing that. So all we're doing from that early start to early finish is we're looking at things from left to right. The late start to late finish, we're looking at them from, so left to right on early start, and then right to left. In other words, backwards of the way we normally think when we're doing that late start, late finish. So this says, how early can I get done? And this says, how late can I start? So hopefully that helps and makes some sense when you're starting to put those together. So we can give you some more examples. There's lots and lots and lots of tutorials that wander off. Maybe just doing it this way where we do it by hand and looking at this chart. You really do need to be able to have this chart ahead of you so you can see where those activities land and that predecessors. So it might not even be a bad idea to build a chart and say, these are my predecessors. So we know that activity C is dependent on activity A, that activity H is dependent on activity C and activity G. That way we can also stagger that out. All right, hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you.